G'day everyone, Artist Wayne here and welcome to episode 1 of my Mad Max 2, the Road Warrior Interceptor 3D build. And I'm printing this awesome model on my original Prusa MK4S 3D printer that I assembled myself. And the model will be in a whoppingly huge 1/8 scale. And I intend to make this the most detailed and movie accurate model of the iconic baddest of badass cars ever to hit the silver screen, the Mad Max 2 Road Warrior Interceptor. From the famous post-apocalyptic Australian blockbuster, Mad Max 2 The Road Warrior, that hit world cinemas in 1981. As a complete novice in the 3D printing world, was I biting off more than I could chew? Of course I was, but being the kind of person who always jumps into the deep end, I reckon with a huge amount of determination, a little bit of talent, and a great deal of help from you, the 3D community, that I will create something brilliant as I start my 3D printing journey in earnest. And take this new form of creativity to new and amazing heights. So after printing the 2 jerry cans, I started at the beginning, the famous Concorde front end, or Monza front, of the Interceptor. A print that took just over 10 hours, using the advanced settings that came with this awesome 3D printable model from the folks at GamBuddy. And like I mentioned in the previous video, I bought some wood putty to rid myself of those pesky print lines. See how that goes, eh? My trusty original Prusa MK4S 3D printer was running 24/7 now. The house had become a 3D printing car parts plant as I moved on to the left and right front guards of the Mad Max 2 Interceptor. Each guard would take over 14 hours to print as I continued to play around with the settings in Prusa Slicer. Plus, whilst all these parts were flying off my heat bed, something that would have made Henry Ford a proud man, I was busy puttying, sanding and painting the 2 jerry cans and the Concorde front I had printed out previously. So with 5 small tubes of basic acrylic colours and 1 large tube of matte black, I was ready to hit the ground running and start creating something special. Okay, here we have the front left guard, or fender, hot off the press. That took 14 hours, or 14 and a half hours to print. You can clearly see all that support material that will need to be cleaned off in there. I'll give that, once it's cleaned off, I'll give it a light sand, especially this sharp line here on the guard. Two-door Falcons, they're not quite that sharp. I should know, I've owned 2 of them, so I know them well. And then using the wood putty, I'll have this front moulding a little smoother, looking like it's more moulded on, not attached like it is. So every time I get a part out, I spend some time cleaning it up and getting it nice and smooth, sand it back, and then the fun part for me is painting it. So here I've started one of the jerry cans. You can see it doesn't have all those print lines now, giving it a good grungy rough look. Probably give it another coat, but then sand it back and bring the colour of the putty through, make it look almost like a little bit of rust. And then I will give that a coat of satin clear the body parts, like this front, the Concord front, I give that another coat of black, but that's going to be sprayed gloss. That'll get a gloss coat of lacquer. And then after that, I'll start to paint all the dirt on each individual part. And then once the model is put together, I'll give it a final coat of dirt so that all the panels match. But this is going to be quite a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Separating the parts from all their support material wasn't too bad a job, but there were times I felt like using a grinder. So I'll need to come up with a better solution that will make this process way more efficient. Once the support material was gone, and on occasion I used a butter knife to help me in the process, I'd give the body part a light sanding, a coat of wood putty, another light sanding, and then it was time to paint. And this would show up any spots that needed more putty. So there you go, that was the process I was using. And who doesn't love model making? Especially when the model you are making is something that you have printed on a printer that you assembled yourself. Oh, it doesn't get any better than this. I was so keen to print parts that sometimes a part would finish at 2 AM in the morning and I'd get up, remove the part from the bed and reload a new part before going back to sleep. Now that's dedication. Anyhow, the dining table was now a panel beating shop. As I moved on to printing out the XB GT bonnet of this most famous car. I continued to try and improve the Prusa slicer settings in my endeavour to get a better finish. And although this print took just over 24 hours, I still couldn't seem to get rid of those print lines. Oh well, for now it looked like I would need to continue with my wood putty and sanding method. One thing I could do was start to see how big this model was actually going to be. The 1/8 scale was looking to be the perfect size. So whilst all this was going on, I began searching online for some kind of display box I could showcase my model in when I was finished. I found a lot of stackable display boxes I thought were a great idea, because basically I'd only need to buy one every time I finish a model. However, finding the right size could prove difficult. And here's a 3D print hot off the press. It's the bonnet to the XB GT Interceptor. So as far as a display box is concerned, I'll need to wait and see what the dimensions of this model end up being when I'm finished. Well, it's a terrible day today, but it's a good day for model making. And I am working on the Mad Max 2 Interceptor bonnet. So what I'm finding is there's quite a lot of print lines in the model. This bonnet took over a day to print. Now it's quite big. It's going to be a huge model. And I don't mind cleaning it. I'm using a butter knife, incidentally, just to get rid of all the support material, and I'll continue to work on that. But I mean, I give it a quick sand, and then I'm using the wood putty, which is working out fine, because the lines are very sharp in the print, whereas the actual car bonnet lines aren't quite that sharp. I'll also drill out the bonnet locks, because they could be way more detailed. I'll leave the ring there, but I'll get some kind of putty and make my own bonnet locks. Alright, I've come inside after sanding the bonnet and just sat the bonnet there with the two guards. the right and left guard, and how good does that look? It's fitting nicely. You can see the guards, I've worked on those, and that's how the bonnet will come up. Epoxy sculpt was on its way, so I could now scratch build anything that wasn't up to scratch. And whilst all this was going on, I was printing one of the largest parts yet. This is actually the internal part of the engine bay. And I guess the guard will attach to this and the front of the Interceptor. So this is one half. Once I print the other half out, I will try to put the front of the car together just to give us an idea of how big the model will actually be. Now I'm pretty sure for this print, which took 24 hours or just over 24 hours to complete, I'm pretty sure I used the standard Prusa slicer settings. And that's come up really nicely. That print really smooth. So I've got to clean it up, but that looks really good. So as I began sanding the Interceptor's bonnet, I had already started printing the other half of the engine bay. However, I was about to learn a very valuable lesson. And I'm back. And I'm definitely going to run out of filament on this print. Definitely. There's no way around it. I guess I could really take note of where this finishes, and then I could possibly print the rest of it and glue the piece together. But we'll have to wait and see. So this is a lesson learned. Always have a backup roll of filament. So, I'm 85% in, and then I remembered I had a little bit of filament left. There's not much there, but at least there's some. So once this finishes, I'll chuck the rest of that filament in. So if I get that part done, then I'll just print the rest, or I'll try and print the rest of that later. So we might get it up to 90%. So I'll only have 10% left and I can glue it together. Unfortunately, that filament hasn't lasted that long. But it is printing the part where the guard will sit. So I'll just have to wait and see how much I get in there. Anyway, it's a learning process. Always have filament on hand. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get where I wanted to. But I'll definitely see if I can work out how to print the remaining part. That's as far as I've got. So now it was time to continue working on the Interceptor's body parts. Well, the sun is out and I am just sanding each individual part. I gave it a really light coat of the wood putty with a lot of water, and I think that once that gets a couple of coats of acrylic, that'll be ready for a clear coat. Because acrylic is soft, I was using the non-abrasive side of the paper just to give it a polish between coats. Matte black acrylic paint smooth out those paintbrush lines between coats, and once I was happy, a clear coat of gloss enamel to get the piece looking perfect. But unfortunately, it looked like shit. This would not cut the mustard, boys and girls, not for a 1/8 scale model. Even if it was the Mad Max 2 Interceptor and going to be covered in dirt and filth from the post-apocalyptic wasteland, nope, I would certainly need a way better finish before moving forward and being able to call this the perfect printing project. And this just so happened to be the precise moment I found something out in the farm shed. Well, I've got a sunny day today, and I am busy. And I actually found a can of primer. How fortuitous! I found a can of primer in the farm shed on the farm that wife Jackie and I were farm sitting. And I am so excited to say that that primer would be the key to unlocking the perfect print surface. However, it wouldn't happen straight away. Alright, primer really doing its job now. I just need to do more work on the bonnet. I want to get that bonnet looking nice before I paint this with black acrylic once again and give it a really light rub back and then hit it with the gloss. Having a much better surface with the primer, I still tried painting on matte black layers of acrylic paint with a brush, with the intention of giving it a light sand between coats. Because this is matte paint and acrylic's rather soft, I'll sand it, but I'll sand it with the back of the sandpaper. So basically it'll just smooth it, almost like it polishes it before I put a gloss coat on. Huge update, I've been busy outside, tried the matte acrylic with a clear gloss over the top. Not a bad result, but it's not good enough. Now, I found a can of primer that I had sprayed, and that's got 3 coats of matte black acrylic and then a coat of clear gloss over the top, but it's still not good enough. Then I found, where is it? Some emery cloth. Found some emery cloth, rubbed the acrylic off, and I'm left with a good hard surface of enamel primer. And with that emery cloth, this is now like glass. This is just a beautiful finish. I can feel it. So the no print lines, you're not going to see anything in these car body parts. Not going to see anything. That is 100% going to be brilliant. Better to work out the perfect way to go with the prints. You know, I was thinking, there's no way you could print the first Mad Max car out because, you know, it would need to be perfect. The body panels would need to be perfect. Yes, and that's exactly what got me into 3D printing when I saw this model. It comes as a monthly subscription from a company in England. With extraordinary detail, the only problem was, being a monthly subscription, it would take over 2 years to receive all the parts and cost almost $3,000. But now, I'd be super confident that I could print the Mad Max 1 car out and create the perfect model in 1/8 scale. Because, like I said, this car is going to be covered in dust and scratches and wear and tear. But the Mad Max 1 car would need to be high gloss and matte black. It would need to look pristine. I was well on the way to getting a near perfect finish. And when I cleaned the print of the left hand side engine bay, you know, the one I didn't run out of filament on, I couldn't help but notice how good a print it was. I've cleaned up most of the engine bay piece, as you can see. And yes, it's a bit rough in here, and I'll certainly need to do more work. But just have a look at that. Just have a look at the finish on all of this. If the body parts came out like that, I'd have to do hardly any cleaning work. It was going to be interesting to see how the next car panel part I printed turned out using the exact same settings I used on this piece. I now had 2 rolls of black filament on order, 1 roll of clear and 1 roll of silver for all those metallic parts. Well, I've been busy today. I gave the car parts another couple of coats of primer. This still needs a gloss coat, but you can see that the finish on this is just spectacular. Really has come up brilliant. And the bonnet, which was the hardest to do, because the print lines in the bonnet were, well, I have to say, they were terrible. But the bonnet is going to look fantastic. So every part has come up really nice. Now, when I was in the shed, the farm shed, I saw something else that might just get rid of all of this crap on the underside of the prints. But more on that later. Well, that's it for episode 1. I think the model is looking fantastic. I've got loads of filament on the way, and I can't wait to get stuck into it once again. Don't forget, if you have any tips that may help me on my 3D printing journey, be sure to let me know. And anyone with any display pod ideas, I'd love to hear them. So until episode 2, I'm artist Wayne Dowson, and thanks for watching, everyone. Happy printing.